1. Procrastination does not equal laziness. Many people use the word lazy to describe themselves when they fail to start a task on time. But in reality, procrastination and laziness are not the same thing. Laziness is a general unwillingness to act. It is characterized by inactivity, indifference, and often a lack of motivation to do anything, even activities that might be enjoyable or beneficial. Procrastination, however, is not a passive state. It is an active process of choosing to delay something important, even though you know it will have negative consequences later. For example, a student who needs to study for an exam but instead spends hours cleaning their room is not being lazy. They are actively avoiding the exam preparation by doing something else. Psychologists emphasize that procrastination is deeply tied to our struggle with emotional regulation. Unlike laziness, which stems from a lack of drive, procrastination often arises from discomfort with the task at hand. People procrastinate not because they do not want to achieve, but because the task makes them feel anxious, bored, overwhelmed, or fearful of failure. Laziness suggests a complete lack of desire, while procrastination reveals a strong desire to succeed, but also a competing urge to escape discomfort. The confusion between laziness and procrastination can be damaging. When individuals label themselves as lazy, they internalize shame and guilt, which can worsen avoidance behaviors. They may begin to believe they lack discipline or character, when in reality, they are struggling with a normal psychological phenomenon rooted in self-protection. Recognizing that procrastination is not laziness, but rather a coping mechanism is the first step in addressing it. It allows individuals to move from self-blame toward self-understanding, which is necessary to break free from the cycle. Procrastination is not a moral flaw, it is an emotional challenge. 2. Emotional regulation. At the heart of procrastination lies emotional regulation. The reason we often delay tasks is not that we cannot do them, but that we want to avoid the negative emotions they trigger. For instance, a person who needs to write a report may associate the task with stress, uncertainty, or even self-doubt about their abilities. Instead of confronting these feelings, the brain seeks immediate mood repair by turning to more pleasant activities, checking social media, watching TV, or even doing smaller, productive tasks that feel easier. This provides short-term relief, but delays long-term progress. From a neuroscience perspective, procrastination is a battle between the limbic system and the prefrontal cortex. The limbic system, which controls emotions and impulses, craves immediate pleasure and relief. The prefrontal cortex, on the other hand, governs planning, decision-making, and long-term goals. When negative emotions tied to a task arise, the limbic system often overrides the rational prefrontal cortex, pushing us toward procrastination. This behavior is not laziness, but a form of emotional avoidance. People procrastinate not because they are indifferent to the outcome, but because they want to escape discomfort in the present moment. Ironically, procrastination often makes those negative emotions worse. The task remains undone, stress increases and guilt builds up, creating a cycle that reinforces the habit of avoidance. Understanding procrastination as an issue of emotional regulation helps shift the conversation. Instead of criticizing ourselves for lacking discipline, we can develop strategies to cope with the emotions that trigger avoidance. Techniques like mindfulness, reframing tasks into smaller steps, or rewarding ourselves for progress can help regulate emotions. By focusing on managing feelings instead of forcing productivity, we can reduce procrastination and foster a healthier relationship with our work. 3. Fear and perfectionism. Fear is one of the strongest drivers of procrastination. Many people delay tasks not because they don't care, but because they care too much. Fear of failure, fear of criticism, or fear of not meeting personal expectations can make tasks feel overwhelming. Instead of facing the possibility of falling short, the mind opts for avoidance. Ironically, Procrastination provides temporary emotional safety, but increases the risk of failure in the long run. Perfectionism plays a major role here. Perfectionists set impossibly high standards for themselves. They believe that unless a task is done flawlessly, it is not worth doing at all. This mindset creates immense pressure, making even simple tasks appear daunting. For example, a writer might avoid starting an article because they feel they must produce something extraordinary from the first draft. The fear of producing something not good enough prevents them from starting at all. Procrastination then becomes a shield against potential imperfection. This link between fear, perfectionism, and procrastination highlights how self-worth is often tied to performance. People who procrastinate due to fear are protecting themselves from the pain of failure or rejection. However, this protection comes at a cost. Deadlines approach, stress increases, and the likelihood of mistakes grows. The very outcome they feared becomes more likely because of delay. Recognizing this cycle is crucial. Overcoming fear-based procrastination requires redefining failure and success. Instead of striving for unattainable perfection, individuals can adopt a growth mindset, viewing mistakes as opportunities to learn. Breaking tasks into smaller, manageable pieces also helps reduce the intimidation factor. When the focus shifts from flawless outcomes to steady progress, the grip of fear and perfectionism weakens, allowing action to replace avoidance. 4. Task aversion. Another psychological factor behind procrastination is task aversion. Simply put, we avoid tasks we find unpleasant. If a task feels boring, difficult, confusing, or meaningless, our natural tendency is to push it aside. This explains why many people procrastinate on chores like paying bills, filling out forms, or studying subjects they dislike, even though these tasks are important. Task aversion is closely tied to how our brains evaluate rewards and discomfort. When a task seems dull or challenging, the mental cost feels greater than the perceived reward. The brain seeks out alternatives that provide quicker satisfaction or stimulation, such as entertainment or social interaction. For example, a student who dislikes math may find it far easier to scroll on their phone than to tackle problem sets that feel tedious and frustrating. Importantly, task aversion is not always about effort. Even people who are hardworking and motivated can procrastinate if they perceive the task as unappealing. It is not laziness, it is a natural response to negative associations. In fact, many procrastinators may still engage in other demanding activities during avoidance, such as cleaning, exercising, or working on unrelated projects. The issue lies in the emotional resistance toward a specific task. Overcoming task aversion requires reframing how we view unpleasant work. One strategy is to connect the task to a larger, meaningful goal. For example, a student who dislikes studying a certain subject might remind themselves that passing the course contributes to their career ambitions. Another approach is to make tasks less intimidating by breaking them into smaller steps, adding rewards along the way, or pairing them with enjoyable activities. By reducing the emotional resistance and increasing the sense of reward, task aversion can be managed effectively, making it easier to take action. 5. Time inconsistency. Time inconsistency, also known as present bias, explains why we procrastinate even when we know a task is important. The human brain is wired to value immediate rewards over long-term benefits. This means that when faced with a choice between something enjoyable now, like watching TV, and something beneficial in the future, like finishing a project, we often choose the immediate pleasure, even if it jeopardizes our goals. This phenomenon is rooted in how our brains evolved. In the past, survival depended on seizing immediate resources rather than planning for distant rewards. While this bias was adaptive for early humans, in modern life, it creates problems. Tasks with delayed payoffs, such as studying for exams, exercising, or saving money, are particularly vulnerable to procrastination. The brain prioritizes comfort now, leaving future consequences to future us. Time inconsistency explains why people often set ambitious goals but fail to follow through. For example, someone might plan to start exercising in the morning, but when the alarm rings, the short-term comfort of staying in bed outweighs the long-term benefit of fitness. This is not laziness. It is the brain's natural tendency to discount future rewards. To overcome time inconsistency, strategies that make future rewards feel more immediate can help. Deadlines, accountability partners, or small incremental rewards can bridge the gap between present effort and future outcomes. Another effective method is the 2-minute rule, starting a task for just 2 minutes to overcome the initial resistance. Once started, momentum often carries people forward. Recognizing that procrastination is a clash between present and future selves allows individuals to design systems that reduce the bias. Instead of relying solely on willpower, adjusting the environment and incentives helps align short-term impulses with long-term goals. 6. Low self-regulation. Self-regulation, the ability to control impulses and stay focused on goals, plays a crucial role in procrastination. People who struggle with time management, concentration, or resisting distractions often find themselves procrastinating more. Unlike laziness, where there is little desire to act, low self-regulation reflects difficulty in channeling effort effectively. Modern life makes this challenge worse. With constant notifications, endless entertainment, and competing responsibilities, maintaining focus requires significant mental energy. Each decision, whether to check email, start a project, or resist scrolling, consumes willpower. Over time, decision fatigue reduces self-regulation capacity, making procrastination more likely. Stress, lack of sleep, and poor energy management further weaken self-control, leaving people vulnerable to distractions. Importantly, procrastination due to low self-regulation does not mean someone lacks ambition or work ethic. In fact, many procrastinators feel frustrated with themselves precisely because they want to achieve but struggle to stay on track. This frustration often fuels guilt, which then leads to further avoidance, trapping individuals in the cycle of procrastination. Improving self-regulation involves building habits and structures that reduce reliance on willpower alone. Time-blocking schedules, setting clear priorities, and using techniques like the Pomodoro method can help manage focus. Minimizing distractions by creating dedicated workspaces or limiting digital temptations also strengthens self-control. Additionally, addressing lifestyle factors such as sleep, nutrition, and stress management improves mental energy for self-regulation. Self-regulation is like a muscle. It gets stronger with practice, but can also fatigue if overused. By treating self-control as a resource to be protected and strengthened, individuals can better manage procrastination. Recognizing that procrastination often reflects temporary lapses in regulation, not laziness, empowers people to adopt supportive systems that make progress more consistent and less draining. 7. The cycle of procrastination. Procrastination often becomes a self-reinforcing cycle. It begins with a task that triggers negative emotions, stress, boredom, or fear. Instead of tackling the task, the person avoids it, turning to something more pleasant. This avoidance provides temporary relief, which reinforces the behavior. The brain learns that procrastination reduces discomfort, making it more likely to repeat. However, the task does not disappear. As deadlines approach, pressure increases, leading to heightened stress and anxiety. The individual may finally rush to complete the task at the last minute, often producing lower quality work. Afterwards, they feel guilty and frustrated, which damages self-esteem. This guilt and shame make the next task feel even more intimidating, continuing the cycle. This cycle explains why procrastination can feel so difficult to escape. Each avoidance strengthens the association between tasks and negative emotions. Over time, people begin to see themselves as lazy or undisciplined, which adds another layer of emotional burden. The cycle is not just about behavior, but about identity. People internalize procrastination as part of who they are. Breaking the cycle requires both awareness and action. Awareness involves recognizing that procrastination is not a reflection of laziness or character weakness, but an emotional coping mechanism. Action involves disrupting the cycle by introducing new responses to task-related discomfort. Starting small, celebrating progress, and practicing self-compassion can weaken the link between tasks and avoidance. Over time, this builds confidence and reduces the emotional weight that fuels procrastination. By reframing procrastination as a cycle that can be broken rather than a fixed trait, individuals can reclaim control. The key is not to eliminate discomfort, but to respond differently, acknowledging emotions without letting them dictate behavior. This shift transforms procrastination from a trap into an opportunity for growth and resilience.